that said, now that we're done with red and blue button shenanigans, and if you want to see how I feel about that entire weird phenomenon on the internet, that's going to be over on the secondary channel. So let's go ahead and talk about what's going on next. Detransitioners. So there is a Catholic detransitioner who went semi-viral ages ago for detransitioning. Because, of course, when you detransition, everybody always is going to use your detransition as an argument that they were right all the time, ever. And here is who we are talking about. So this person, trans, was transitioning, and then, for some reason, don't know why, decided to detransition. Now, let's go over the facts real quick about detransitioners. Of the population of the human race, we have an estimate that somewhere around 0.5 and 1% of them are trans. Of the trans population, somewhere around 0.5 and 1% of them, maybe up to 3% of them, detransition. And of the detransitioners, more than half of them retransition, because it turns out that the reason they detransitioned was not because of their own internal critique of themselves, but because of open hostility from people around them. Briley, thank you for following. So this person detransitioned. For whatever reason that you detransition, that is perfectly valid. Go ahead. Do your thing. It's your body. Do what you want. I just hate that you get used as a weapon against trans people. That feels weird and weird. But wouldn't you know it, they've retransitioned. You know? Like we've been saying they often do. Weird. We get to use people as weapons too now. If that's what the right wing is going to do, if the right wing is going to use every detransition story as a fucking bludgeon, then we should be able to use every retransition story as a fucking shield. There is no reason we should not be able to do that. Escalation theory is cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and read what's going on here. And I think there's a video here as well.
Oh, if my priest agrees with how I represent myself in the world now, I couldn't hate myself any longer. The self-loathing I've had for the last 8 months has been excruciating. And I know you're thinking that's just your sin talking, but it's not. This is me.
Wow, it's almost like the reason that she detransitioned was because of outside pressure. In this case, religious pressure. And then, you know, internal critique showed that maybe it was okay for her to transition. Wow.
Talking, and I have a hard time understanding how what I look like and what I wear is a sin in the eyes of God. I don't think it is.
No, it's not. If God is all-knowing and he's omnipotent and if he's a tri-omni God, then definitionally he made you trans. That's what that means. If he's tri-omni, he made you trans because he knew you were going to want to transition. He built you that way. That's what it is. That's what it is. Midnight Rider did a super chat for $4.99 earlier. Says, I curse that overrated shard nut. That award he won was stolen by Callie Mori in an award show that was burying VTubers. Stolen by or stolen from? But also, thank you for the super chat. I don't know why I didn't see that when it was over on YouTube. Probably because it's on screen 3.
I think that me following the greatest commandment to love the Lord with all of your heart is more important. I think that God looks at the heart while people look at the outward. I believe in the Holy Scriptures. I believe in the Lord Jesus.
So from a Christian perspective, this should be all that matters. This should be all that matters. Did you believe in Jeebus Christ? Did you? Then you are saved. That's what it is. Now, I know if you're Catholic, there's a few other frills on that, but by and large, saved by grace is usually considered sufficient. Marco says, also, like, how dare you use a wheelchair or crushes? Don't you know God made you without legs, and choosing to go against his design is a damnable sin? See how silly that sounds? Right, so here's the thing. Gender dysphoria is an invisible illness. Gender dysphoria is an invisible illness. So the only way that we can operate where gender dysphoria is concerned is by trusting whatever is told to us by the person who is suffering it. With most psychological disorders, with us having an inability to cut into the brain and just chop it into its several itty-bitty pieces and figure out exactly which piece is working which way, because we lack that, we generally have to have people self-report when it comes to anything psychological. This is why psychology is a social science, and as a social science, it is considered a soft science, because we cannot give it as rigorous an amount of testing. That does not mean that it should not be taken seriously. It is still a science. It is still a study. It is still something that has plenty of merit. And there are plenty of people who have received help from the medical industry because of psychiatry. For me, depression. I suffer from depression. I have an anxiety disorder. I've not been diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I know that I binge eat. And I've lost 13 pounds and going on the weight loss medication that I'm on, and the weight loss medication that I'm on happens to also be an antidepressant. Have y'all noticed that my output in videos has increased? Have y'all noticed that it's been way easier and there's been fewer droughts of content for weeks and weeks and halves on time on all 3 of the channels that I produce stuff for? Have you noticed that the instances where I've been able to stream only 1 day in the week have severely dropped, and now 3 to 4 streams a week is an expected norm that I am able to more easily maintain? And my energy levels are higher? It's almost like these studies show that we can, in fact, rely on some of the data that comes from them. Weird. Kwaikitsune says, how dare you go against God's design? Right, yep, the antidepressants that I take that have improved several aspects of my life to 1200%, should never take them. Awful, horrible. Sean says, and you're not having a horrible anxiety attack whenever there's a secret layer drop, unlike the professor? Jesus Christ. When the brain soup has the right seasoning, it does good. Again, soft science, but that does not mean you should not take it seriously. Living example of that for myself, anecdotally. Anyway, gender dysphoria, much like depression, is an invisible illness. It is something that you have to rely on somebody else to tell you that they have, and you have to trust that they are not lying to you. Are there people who lie about gender dysphoria? Absolutely. Why should I fucking care? We get 2 worlds here. Decision theory time, everybody. We're doing the red and blue button thing again. Decision theory time. World 1. Some trans people are lying, and that number is above 50%. I guess fuck 40-something% of trans people. Well, that makes you sound like an idiot. That makes you sound like an asshole. A few people get some excess that they don't need, and then you just throw everybody else under the bus because of them. All right, well, let's go to the other option. Some trans people lie about gender dysphoria, and it's less than 50%. Now your options are helping most of trans people or saying fuck most of trans people. And that doesn't work either. Both scenarios suck for you, 110%. In every scenario, it's okay to do gender-affirming care, and part of gender-affirming care is also determining whether or not somebody is actually trans. Part of that is getting somebody to do that reflection with you. I said, or pain in general, or emotions. Right. Why do you think we do the 1 to 10 scale with pain thing? Because we can't measure pain. Because even if we're looking at like how hard the synapses are firing, your personal experience of that pain is going to be different than somebody else who has the exact same synapses firing.
My heart is better to serve him without hating myself. My heart is better as a partner to Charlotte without hating my existence, enforcing an identity on myself. And my heart is better to serve my community this way. I couldn't hate myself any longer.
Okay, so that's perfectly reasonable. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. And yet, there are still going to be people who go in there and they're going to misgender this person constantly. Is that video real? I don't see it. Was it an Instagram story? Misgendered person is not Catholic. They took OCIA classes. The priest refused to baptize them because they're a cross-dresser. Wow. It's almost like there's bigotry in the church, and that bigotry in the church does not excuse you for doing the same amount of bigotry. What the fuck are you going on about, Melissa? But let's go ahead and read the story. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see what's really going on here. A prominent Catholic catechism detransitioner has announced that they're going back to living and dressing as a woman. Knees Powers has been making headlines for several months now. Born a man. Man, they are really, really sticking hard on the disrespect here. That is twice. I think they're just going to be constantly misgendered the entire time. So we're going to read it as is, understand that it's misgendering. Born a man, he spent years living as a transgender woman named Nicole before detransitioning in mid-2025. Shortly thereafter, found faith, became a Christian, has been documenting their journey as a new believer in a series of Instagram videos and reels, garnering hundreds of millions of views. These included a post as first time going to the church, day 13 of being a Christian, and going to a men's Bible study for the first time, while when some criticized his documentarian approach, they were well received. Okay, well, let's go ahead and see what's going on here. What we have here. Fucking hell. This is why vertical video is cancer, by the way.
Come with me for a men's Bible study. I tried to go to one last night, but it got canceled. 10 years ago, when I lived as Nicole, this is the last thing I would have seen myself doing. Anything that distinctively called itself for men, I stayed far, far away from. So here I am at a men's Bible study. Let's find some fellowship among other Christian men. So I got here at 6 o'clock, but it actually doesn't start until 6:30. So everything's locked up. I'm super early. That would explain why there's no cars in the parking lot. I should have known something when I pulled up, but I guess more time to read the Bible on my own.
Okay.
Snap a picture if you want.
So it should be known that the publication that we're talking about, Protestia, is a Christian website known for criticizing pastors for being too liberal and not wanting to bash the gays enough. Just so you know the kind of publication we're looking at. You kind of probably got that vibe from us reading the paper. But yeah, Protestical. Russ says, I've been told that a lot of conservatives are more influenced by anecdotes than real statistics. Part of me thinks that's very true. No, it's true. It's true. So there is no Venn diagram that perfectly shows that, like, liberals versus conservatives versus leftists versus alt-righters are more swayed by one thing or another. There's no pure Venn diagram for that, but we do know that there are studies showing that even when, like, faced with evidence, conservatives of the modern age tend to deny that stuff more often. There's more arrogance there. I will say, though, that it's a standard bit of the human experience, though. A standard bit of the human experience is to look at anecdotes and say that they are facts. They are facts, yes, but a study that has 1,000 anecdotes in it is going to be more useful than the singular anecdote. And that study itself will be data. The plural of anecdote is not data. The study that is analyzing the anecdote becomes data. I don't think it's a uniquely conservative thing. I think it's everybody. People are generally swayed more by testimony than they are swayed by number. Numbers are a thing that we have to contextualize for ourselves as we hear them. I can say 50% of 2 million, and you can understand I'm meaning 1 million. And we're talking about people. You can understand what 1 million people is vaguely. Well, you probably haven't stared at a crowd of 1 million people together, because if you have, your concept of that is going to be far different than if you hadn't. Sean says, i.e. flat earthers and anti-gravitators. Don't ask how I know these people. I know flat earthers. I used to do content on flat earthers, and then I stopped doing content on flat earthers because I found it boring, because once you've shown that the world is round once, debunking it 5 more times gets really boring. It's the same reason that I stopped doing primarily atheist content and moved into the political sphere. One, I could not stop talking about politics because every single time Steven Anderson came up, I was like, no, don't kill the gays. Here's why. And that invariably led to talking about politics more. But also, I got to the point where, like, my criticism of religion largely was, I do not like the harm it does, but I don't mind the people in it. I think that as a tool, it can be used for good or bad, and I'm disgusted when it's used for bad. And because of that, the only thing I could ever do with atheist content became, yeah, I don't believe in God. That's my answer to question 6 on top 10 questions for atheists, number 59. Maybe I'll do another top 10 questions for atheists video at some point, but like, I find them very hip-fiery and boring, and half the questions in them usually end up being questions that are for meteorologists or biologists, not atheists. Jesus. Sylvie says, tried talking to my coworkers about electric cars. My boss said they suck because her one sister had one bad experience with an electric car, and that was enough to convince her electric car bad forever. Yeah, no, that's... people are swayed by not data. They are swayed by anecdote. Always and forever, and it sucks.
Encourage one another. We help each other. The largest ships are guided by the smallest rudder. And
Good to meet you guys. See ya. Yep. It's not too scary hanging out with guys. That went so much better than I ever thought it could go. Some of the guys were battling things that I have not experienced as a man before. They talked about different urges that I haven't had with women and things like that, and I had a hard time relating.
Yeah, you had a hard time relating to their uniquely male experiences because despite being born male, that's not your experience. You did because trans girl. It makes sense to me.
That way, even though I'm with a woman now, I still feel like there's a little disconnect. But the more that I continue to fellowship with other men and just be around my Christian family, the more Christ-like I'll become, and that's all I want in the long run. Maybe this small group might not be my thing. Definitely was fun to meet and fellowship with other Christian men.
Okay, so let's see if they show any of the stuff post-transition. I wonder if they will. I guess they have one thing. Let's see here. In search of a new church home, Nisa documented her visits, her assholes, to multiple congregations, including Independent Fundamental Baptist, Baptist, Pentecostal, Lutheran, Methodist, and eventually Roman Catholic. You went to the IFB? Oh, that is precious. They argue for kill the gays all the time. I mean, at least the Methodists are a little more chill. What the fuck? Nisa's brutal honesty about her struggles to live and act like a man while putting to death his sinful self were insightful and raw. His journey caught some attention, and he was booked for big interviews with multiple Christian content creators. Yeah, because they'll parade any detransitioner they can as a fucking tool. You become the token detrans, and then you get spent. And this is you being spent, by the way. This is your experience being spent. You existed as an object, nothing more. Nisa ultimately settled on Roman Catholic, where they've been taking the OCIA, Order of Christian Institute, Initiation of Adults classes, also known as RCIA. He's long documented plans to enter full communion with the Roman Catholic Church when they will be baptized and receive confirmation in First Communion. As our investigation previously noted, their past history was all made up. They lied and fabricated every detail of their testimony and transition, purging, privatizing, and deleting most of their social media content in order to keep the grift alive. They didn't transition in their mid-teens, but rather when they were nearly 30 years old. In fact, by their own testimony, they're nearly a decade older than they're claiming to be. Oh, okay. Who cares? Who cares? Hold on. Did you guys confuse the minute that somebody realized they were trans and started taking actions as a result of that, which could literally just be cross-dressing? Did you take that and then go, but they started HRT and doing surgeries and shit later? Did you make that mistake? Because that's a pretty common mistake. Ultimately, it looks like Nisa couldn't keep it together. A month after announcing that he and his live-in girlfriend, Charlotte, are getting married, they began posting and deleting a series of test videos and images, which were quickly screen-grabbed. First, they shared that they've been showing up to Mass dressed as a woman, offering it as a public confession. Within hours, they deleted it and changed the caption, taking on a defiant posture and claiming that the only time they ever felt comfortable and safe in a church in the last 10 months was while looking like a woman. Okay. This just sounds like most stories of people being trans in an area that is overtly hostile to them. Then it says they know all that shit costs money. Right, this is why I can't get on with the trans medicalists. I can't. I think they're all fucking stupid. Because every person who's a trans med that believes that, like, you don't become trans until the minute you take the HRT. You don't become trans until the minute that you've taken an injection. You don't become trans until the minute that you've taken a surgery. Every single one of them, it makes no fucking sense to me, because it's like, you realize some people can't afford this shit, right? You realize that, like, vaginoplasty and phalloplasty are expensive? What? Notice how happy she is when she presents as her authentic self? Yeah, imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine. Fucking hell. They planned to officially enter Catholic Church on Easter, but the priest delayed it and pushed back, telling them they weren't ready, which caused Nisa to become depressed and despondent. Some have speculated that the reason for the priest's refusal may have had something to do with the clothes and attitude about gender dysphoria, leading Nisa to post this now deleted image. So anyway, y'all remember Marcy? Do y'all remember Marcy Rankton? The trans woman who protested Florida and then got arrested for protesting Florida's bill? And I traveled multiple times to Florida in order to document the arraignment process and everything. Like, you guys remember that shit? Okay, cool. They, the minute that Charlie Kirk died, she deleted all of her fucking social media shit and disappeared off the internet. Completely. And it's kind of crazy to me. Like, all of her shit is locked down now. And, like, I get that it's probably a thing that was done solely for self-protection. That makes sense. We live in a weird and wacky world, and you just saw a big creator show that any one of us can be ripped away from the mortal coil. But I'm just going to say this right now. I am not surprised for any trouble that any trans woman has in the Catholic Church. The church itself may be more progressive than the IFB and other, like, fundamentalist organizations, but it is not a progressive apparatus. It is an apparatus that is ripped hard into being progressive over time. So Nisa shared a confession of sorts, saying that every day for the last 9 months they've prayed that God would make them a woman because they've been bitterly unhappy and unsatisfied. I'm not happy being a man. I'm not. I've tried to fake it this last year and live in the joy of the Lord and done that, but I've still wanted more. I've wanted my own desire still. I'm not over it.
Every day for the last 9 months, I've prayed that God would make me a woman. Yeah, I know. It's selfish. I've been a Christian less than a year, and I haven't known how to pray my entire life until then, and the only prayer I ask for is something that God isn't going to answer, right? Because he made me perfect. I know that, but it still doesn't take away my pain. Why can't I be less selfish? Why do I still question God's design? I'm not happy being a man. I'm not. I have tried to fake it this last year and live in the joy of the Lord, and I've done that, but still I've wanted more. I've wanted my own desire still. Yeah.
I'm going to give a handful of pushbacks. Pushback number 1, God made you trans. I already gave that pushback earlier. Pushback number 2, when God gives a child leukemia, that's part of his design, and you don't think that's weird? That's weird. Jessa says, girl, saying you're in a huge amount of pain means your God didn't create you perfect because not a perfect being or being at all. Right. There's multiple angles of argument here. There's the argument that God made you trans, and you're rebelling against that. There's the argument that God does not make people perfect because if he made them perfect, he wouldn't make them with chronic back pain. He wouldn't make children who die of malaria after like a year or two. He wouldn't do that. But he does, so he's either not all-powerful, not all-knowing, or not all good. Pick one, or pick none of them, and accept that he's probably actually kind of sort of evil. Those are your options. The tight ass, an absentee landlord, etc. Yeah.
I'm not over it. I'm not done with it. I'm just being honest. Because I'm done being selfish. I'm done asking in prayer what I know that God probably won't fulfill. And maybe I'm not. Maybe I'll still go to bed tonight and pray that God will make me a woman. I don't know why I want to be something I'm not so bad. I don't know why. But I do know that Christ is Lord, and I do know that my baptism is coming up, and for that, I say in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's go ahead and talk about that. You are a woman. If your identity is woman, then you are a woman. Now, somebody's going to go like, but that's different than a cis woman. Yeah, obviously. Who fucking cares? Woman's an umbrella term, and cis woman is under there, and trans woman is under there. Boy, howdy, they're different. For a woman to be cis and have a gawk, then they've got to be intersex. And for a woman to have a gawk on the other side, they just have to be trans. Yeah, there's differences. Who cares? We are different. There's difference between black and white people. It doesn't matter, ultimately. We are so obsessed with hyper-categorizing every little thing when we could just accept that we're all human and be fucking fine. Later again, dressed as a woman, they shared a video captured, "Every day of my life I pray to God to make me a woman." These released another reel where they concludes that not that God wanted them to give up their identity as a her, but rather God wanted him as a her. Yeah, that's duh. He told me last summer I want her. Okay. And where are you going to disprove it? Is God going to come into the room right now and say, no, actually, I didn't tell her to transition? You're not going to find that because he's an absentee voter here. As a result of this erratic behavior, Hallow has ended their partnership with him. Furthermore, Niza has lost nearly 2,500 or 25,000 followers on Instagram alone. Right, because the only reason that the audience was with you wasn't because of who you are. They were with you because of what you are. They didn't care about Niza the person, they cared about Niza the idea. The idea of Niza to them included detransitioning. Once detransitioning was off the table, Niza the idea ceased to be, and they have no use for Niza the person. They always had use for Niza the idea. Once again, tokens get spent. Let's see here. And then I think this is the video we already saw. Yeah, this is the video we already saw. What some may chalk up as a step back in an ongoing sanctification process, we're not so sure. In our original exposure article, we asked, why did they do it? Why do they seemingly continue to lie over and over despite their videos seeming to show a realistic portrayal of someone going into sanctification? It's worth noting Niza released many videos before their Newbie Christianity series, where they had already begun the process of detransitioning. These videos consisted of nature walks and featured them frolicking through the forest while gushing that water, earth, sun, stars were transforming their mind and helping them realign their mindset from woman to man. Right. You documented somebody coping. You documented cope. And you're confused? That's all you did. You documented cope. They were looking for a reason to cope with their situation. They didn't find it. Then they went to religion to cope with their situation. They went to multiple different types of the same religion. They didn't find it. And they ultimately realized maybe instead of coping about this, maybe I should accept that dysphoria is a real thing that happens to people and it's happened to me, and therefore I should address it. Fucking hell. Sean says, remember Ben Shapiro couldn't do a documentary, so he made a comedy and it still sucks? Yep. Wasn't that Lady Ballers? Lady Ballers was the one where that happened, right? Yep. See here. Is there anything else interesting in here, or is it just them, like, waxing lyrical about somebody's transition and then being confused when they've done zero research on anything about transition at all? Because I feel like just doing zero research is all they've done. That's okay. Okay. I like that there's at least this one thing here saying her story is not unusual among people who detransition as the right might think it is. Detransition is the new ex-gay. Lies fed to the vulnerable that promised them help, but only caused more pain by forcing people to lie about who they really are. Yeah, again, there are people who can do the ex-gay thing, not because they stopped being gay, but because they realize they're bi and they lean further into opposite gender attraction than same gender attraction at that point. I didn't make them ex-gay, but they can run the gamut of pretending, I guess. Then you've got people who do the detransition thing. And while there are some people who do detransition because they realize they were not going down the path that was good for them, ultimately it is up to them to determine that path, not you. And so when people retransition afterwards, you shouldn't be surprised. Not everybody's journey is a straight line. Orla says, funny thing, I was asked my opinion about transgender people today in person, so I proceeded to nerd. I'm not confused about that at all. That makes perfect sense. Granny says, the whole little network with Shapiro, Peterson, and who the fuck ever else. You know whoever else? You know whoever else was in that network? Richard Dawkins. And I'm going to be honest, there are some institutions I would struggle to take money from. And I think that Daily Wire money is blood money, personally. Said, oh yeah, Jordan Peterson might be dead, or he's in a coma again, who knows. That said, I don't think I have anything else here. I don't have anything else to add here. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.